Mortgage pre-approval, just a waste of time? Is it a lot of hype? Is that really true? Stay tuned. I've got the guy that can answer those questions for us. Let's explore together. Hey, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of Inside the Deal Through Michael's Eyes. It's a fresh take on real estate and business. I am Michael Renick. I am your host for this podcast. Just a little quick brief history. After a 31-year career, I retired from General Motors at the young age of 52, moved right into my real estate career. I currently hold a Florida's real estate broker's license, and I focus on servicing the West Coast. The purpose of these podcasts is to educate, is to talk about business done right. It's to point out things that happen that are wrong and to really get down to the nitty gritty, if you would. My guest, who is a good friend, Don just came on the screen, is Don B., the man I call the mortgage coach who explains why. And let's stop here because I failed to do this last time. I butcher your name every time, Don. How do you pronounce Bartolomucci?
It's easy to butcher, but it's Bartolomucci, yes.
So you're going to have to change your name. We'll start the paperwork so I can finally get this right. But let me quickly finish your introduction here. When my clients need a great mortgage person, Don is the only one that I refer. Over the years, he has demonstrated the same passion as I have today, and that's doing business the right way. As we all know, the mortgage process is a complex one. With an extended partner like Don, we have someone that guides my client seamlessly through the process and delivers a quality product each and every time. What I personally like about Don is that he does not offer excuses, but instead works to find a solution even in the most difficult cases. And throughout this, we'll provide his contact information that's on the screen. But one of the things I realized since we're new to this, Don, is that our phone numbers don't show up for the listeners. So why don't you go ahead and give your email and your phone number right now?
Well, phone number, the local number is 941-227-7618.
And your email address?
And the email, because like you, Mike, you said, my name's so difficult to say, try to spell it. So we're just going to shorten it with bartandteam@gmail.com.
Bart and team, like a baseball team, football team?
That's right.
All one word, bartandteam@gmail.com.
Yep, that's right.
And for those folks that may want to get a hold of me, my personal cell, because I believe we should be available at your convenience, not the other way around, is 941-400-8735. So, Don, we just had a little bit of discussion about this and didn't have a whole lot of time to practice, but that's what makes a podcast more better, if you would, if there's such a word. But let me just start off with the basics and ask this question. What exactly is a mortgage pre-approval, and how is it different than a pre-qualification? Is there a difference?
There is. And it's a little misconstrued in the industry because those two terms are used interchangeably when they're really a big difference between the two. A pre-qualification is basically verbally having a discussion about a borrower, their income, their assets, their debts, and credit. And then we basically make a decision whether or not that person would be able to qualify for a mortgage up to a certain dollar amount. A pre-approval is the same process with one distinction. And the distinction is a pretty big one, and that is where we validate what the borrower's information is that they told us. And this isn't to say that people are being untruthful. It's just, how do you know what your real mortgage credit scores are? How do you know how we will calculate overtime, bonus, commissions, self-employed borrower? So there's a lot of calculations, a lot of detail that goes into a pre-approval that isn't done necessarily in a pre-qualification.
You said a key point right there. If someone asked me right now if I could get a full approval for a mortgage, and if so, how much, I have no idea. It's been about 3,000 years since I paid off my mortgage. And, other than, and I'll be really candid, I live on credit cards. I ever have since I was 21, but I pay them in full at the end of every month. So I get all the bonus points and gifts and all that kind of stuff. But you're right. So if I came to you for a mortgage, I have no idea.
And that's the point is that, a lot of times the perception in the industry is and the buyers for that matter is that a pre-approval, pre-qualification, whichever vehicle you use, is done for the benefit of the seller. And that is true. The seller does, why would I want to take my house off the market if I have a buyer that's I'm going to go under contract with it, can't perform on the mortgage and get the financing necessary to do the purchase. But more importantly, in my opinion, and really what I was hoping to focus on with this particular conversation is the advantages, the crazy advantages for the buyer in having that pre-approval done ahead of time, so that we can get into the so what, why, and what you can fix, what information you can gather instead of being a fire drill. You can really structure the transaction to the benefit of the borrower, as opposed to just a fire drill and getting a pre-approval letter done.
So it's all about what I stand for in business. It's a win-win. The seller and the buyer both win, because if I'm representing a buyer and they've got full approval, I can present this as almost as strong as a cash offer, in terms of I can convince the seller my buyer is the person they want to award the contract to, the house to. We've gone through all the steps. We've done the underwriting. We've gone through all the qualifications necessary. And this is almost as good as gold. Is that a good way to look at it, Don?
Let's talk about, we said pre-approval, or excuse me, pre-qualification, which is just a verbal conversation, just like we're having now.
Right.
Pre-approval is where we validate some of that information. There's another degree of pre-approval, and that's a pre-approval that we actually take the documentation that the borrower sends us, and we actually package the loan just as if the borrower had purchased a property. And we send that loan to underwriting for the underwriter to actually make a credit decision, which is a commitment to lend money, which is as good as cash. Because now the mortgage process has been done. You put the cart in front of the horse, the mortgage process is done.
So what that means is the buyer's gone through all the steps. They know exactly what they qualify for. Now, the key is still finding the right house at the right price. Because if you qualify for X number of dollars, you can't buy a house for 3 times the X unless you've got a lot of cash to put in there. But it really helps. It really helps make things stronger. Now, right now, today, when we're recording this, and today is actually, as I look at the clock, it's December 11th, and we're in a buyer's market. So buyers are definitely the strength. But here's the thing. So if you have 2 or 3 buyers going after a house, and I represent you, and we've taken you through this process, I have a lot of different tools when I sit down with the seller and the seller's agent to convince them you're the person that they want to sell this home to. It's the home you've been looking for. And just the words, something simple as this is, my buyer has taken the time to go through the steps to take all the risk out of this things ahead of time, because they want to be fully prepared to close this deal. And it just gives me a lot of tools. Would you agree?
I would agree, but think about this also. And that's the how you position it, and really what the seller would, I would think that would be a good thing if the seller knew that the buyer was that serious and went through and did all this information. They're serious about going into contract with them. But one thing that I keep making notes as you're talking because things are coming to mind. I don't want to forget them. But from a buyer's perspective, I can't tell you how many times I meet with a borrower. They have a house under contract and then are shocked at what it costs in closing costs, attorney's fees, title insurance, appraisal, credit report, the fees associated with the mortgage. Again, the pre-approval process puts all that information at that borrower's fingertips, so they can now go into the transaction knowing the whole story, not just the down payment that I need to buy the house, but what about the closing costs, the escrows, the prepaid items, homeowners insurance, all that stuff, all that information we discuss in a pre-approval, where necessarily you don't have that same kind of information at your fingertips with a pre-qualification.
So those are even more reasons why the buyer wants to go through this thing. When you, especially if you're maybe a first-time buyer and this is all new to you, and even a more experienced buyer, I want to know when I walk into this deal and I write that offer, what my total, what my monthly payments are going to be, what my total costs are going to be to purchase this loan, all that kind of stuff. So this process, this is a take the gloves off, no holds barred. So I'm going to put you on the spot with a question. So is there any risk to the buyer of writing a cash offer because they know this is already guaranteed?
If they do the pre-approval where we actually submit the loan to underwriting and have the credit approval done, let's not call it a pre-approval, let's call it a credit approval. If we do that, the only risk is the appraisal, the collateral. That's it. Because the mortgage, and that's the other part. I wrote down a word over here, relax. Wouldn't it be nice? You sign your contract, you got to do your home inspection, you got to do this, you got to get your earnest money in, all that stuff has to happen right within the first 3 to 5 days. Or 3 to 15 days generally. You got so many things to do. And then we put on top of it how the mortgage person is driving you crazy with, I need this, this, and this, and this. Relax. Take the mortgage off the table, get it all done ahead of time, and now just concentrate on what is important, and that is finding out if the house is in the condition you thought it was. Is it, you have everything done that you need to take care of for the purchase contract.
So if I go through this process up front, and now the next thing is I'm going to work with a good agent, and I'm going to find the home that I'm looking for. How long let's call it full approval. I'll use my terms on this. How long is that full approval good for? Does it vary, or how does that work?
It's good for 90 days.
Okay.
And basically think about it. And let's play the Wizard of Oz. Let's look behind the curtain.
Okay.
And behind the curtain is when we approve a borrower's documentation specifically, we're approving a piece of paper. That piece of paper is good for generally 60 to 90 days. So think about it. If I do your pre-approval with this information, and this information, in 90 days, I go back and I re-verify this information, and this. If all the pay stubs, bank statements, and the credit report remain the same, it's literally a rubber stamp and you're approved for another 90 days. And the best part about it, Mike, it costs the borrower zero.
Okay.
Nothing.
So if I go up front and I get this full approval, am I able to lock in the interest rate if it's to my advantage when I get the full approval?
Another layer of options. Now we're going to go to the restaurant and we're doing a la carte. So now you've got your pre-approval. Now we did our credit approval, or in Mike's terminology, your loan approval. And now let's talk about the interest rate. You want to lock that in? There's a program that most people are familiar with, or at least the terminology is lock and shop, meaning you can lock your rate ahead of time before you actually purchase a property. And we won't get in the weeds on that. Maybe that's a conversation for another day, but yes, you can do that, Mike.
Is there a program? Again, I'm just shooting from the hip. This is, like I said, take the gloves off kind of a conversation. Is there a program that I could lock in a rate, but if it falls, take advantage of that at the same time in the next 90 days?
Boy, we're going now. We're getting our dessert now. Yes,
ooh. I'm hungry. I haven't had lunch yet today, and this is 3:00 in the afternoon. So keep it at it, but go ahead.
That's called a float down option, and most I don't want to speak for every lender, but most lenders have some sort of float down option. So the answer to your question is, yeah, a lock is protecting you against the rising interest rate environment. And the lender has risk with doing that because we go out and buy a forward commitment and we actually have to deliver that loan to the buyer. So we've got to make sure we have that money available, right? Mm-hmm. So the float down option has some stipulations with it. It has to be float down to a certain percentage. In other words, if the rate goes down 1/8%, there's not a whole lot I can do. Okay. But if it goes down 1/4, 3/8, 1/2, yeah, we'll float you down to current market.
In especially right now in these times, let me make a statement, see if you agree. Interest rates are volatile today, correct?
Mike, for 2 years now, we've been talking about interest rates are going to fall, right? They're going to come down,
and they will, right? Someday.
And I swear to you, I look at my clock and I'm thinking, we've been saying this for 2 years now, and literally, we've got a little bit of help, but the market's stubborn. It's not convinced. Well, again, we won't get into that conversation. So the bottom line, and yes, we are in an environment that we believe is interest rates are going to fall.
Once a month, I do 2 market updates, one locally here in Sarasota, Manatee County, and I talk about what the stats are. But I also do a national one, and I pull in information from all national experts that I respect. And they're all saying, the forecast for 2025 is interest rates are going to fall. Now, here's what we know. They haven't fallen as fast as everyone thought, and they haven't fallen to the level yet. But one day they're going to be right. Is that correct?
Just like the weather, man, 50-50. Yep. They're either going to go up or they're going to go down. But right now it's more, 90-10. Rates are going to soften up. But keep in mind, it's going to go down in a jagged motion. It's not going to be a slide. Where there's, as you mentioned, the word is volatility. There's still a lot of volatility. Let's put it this way: stock market, bond market. The bond market does not like uncertainty. And right now, we got a new president. We've got an economy. Who knows what's happening with unemployment? What's happening? There's so many uncertainties that the bond market just isn't comfortable, and that isn't good for bonds. Which means
even internationally, right? There's all kinds of challenges on the international stage. That's got to impact, the cost of money back here in this country.
For sure.
It's probably going to stay volatile for a little while until hopefully some good things happen. Let me ask you this. I get a buyer and we're having this discussion and they don't want to go through the full approval process because they want to shop around to get the best rate. How does a buyer that wants to shop around ultimately get into this process? I mean, they're not going to ask 3 different mortgage people or 4 different mortgage brokers to do a full approval on them. What's the business case I make to convince them that they need to get that done up front? It's to their advantage, and then take them through this process.
When we start talking about interest rates, and it's a difficult conversation because when you talk about interest rates, you've got to also discuss lender fees, discount points, and origination fees. The problem is the consumer really isn't aware of how those fees affect the interest rate. So, and what I offer, and I've been doing this, Mike, as you know, for 36 years. You don't stay in this business if you treat people wrong. Just like you've been in business a long time, and people can see through the curtain, if we're going to use that same analogy, and you're not going to be in business very long. My point is, you need to find someone that you trust. By the way, this is the biggest investment that a person is going to probably make in their lifetime. You got to do your interviews, find someone you trust and stick with them, because that person's going to be there looking out for you too. The CFPB back at the meltdown took a lot of the scrupulous tactics, took them off the table. So whatever my price is, I can't charge somebody more or less than what the rate is today. I'm not allowed to do it. It's illegal. So the bottom line is, get educated, find out what all the fees are. Don't just ask for interest rate. And the other thing, Mike, is Fannie Mae has a thing, Freddie Mac has a thing called loan level price adjustments. So what makes me crazy is when people call me and say, what's your rate today? Well, I have to ask 4 or 5 questions to give them a rate. Mm-hmm. What type of financing? How much money you're putting down? What's your credit score? Are you buying a condo, a single family? There's so many different layering.
Second home, first home, investment property, right?
Investment property, primary residence. So you just can't quote a rate. It's just not possible.
This is really complex. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. I see a lot of websites. I'm a technologist. I'm a retired IT guy. And I love technology. And I see a lot of online websites that I can go out and fill in a couple of pieces of information and get an approval. What's going on with these online mortgage kind of things?
Now, I will tell you, we use technology, and most mortgage companies are using it as well. There's ADP. Everybody's familiar with ADP and the work number. And there's a system that we can use where we can verify assets electronically. So there's a lot of things we can do electronically with the borrower's approval, of course. But it is invasive from the perspective. What I mean by invasive is we're going to go in and verify your assets into your bank account. We're going to go into your pay stub and verify how much money you make. So some of these technologies, and I don't know if this is where your question was leading, but you can do online applications where some of the information, if you allow it, you can verify electronically, and you don't need to give me any paper, because I can get it a different way. Those are good approvals. But then there's the other ones where you fill out data and there's nothing that backs up that data. You're going to get a pre-approval, and I think this is where you were heading. You're going to get a pre-approval based upon the information that you put in that isn't validated. That's not worth the paper it's written on.
So that's a pre-qualification.
It's pre-qualification.
So any agent out there that's working for a seller, is listing a property, it behooves my peers and myself to make sure sellers understand the differences from these different levels here. Because cash is always best when you can verify proof of funds. But then when you're in the financing mode, which a lot of people are, you want, again, if your buyer is truly, let's say they found the dream home, this is what they want. I don't want to walk away and lose the deal for them. I want to bring that over the finish line. And this is one of the tools that I need to have to ensure they can get the home that they're looking for.
Mike, back to my our conversation at the beginning of our conversation. The consultation that we do, and again, with 38 years of experience, I've seen a lot of things, and I can tell you there are situations where I have told a borrower, based upon their goals, their profile, where they are in life, where they're not in life, whatever, it might be better for them to pay cash. And I'll be the first to admit that to them and tell them, this is your best option. But how do you know that? There's a thing called leverage. If interest rates are at 6% and you're making 7 or 8 in the market, why would I? You need to at least consider a 2-point spread and why you would liquidate those assets. On the other hand, what if it's flip-flopped and you're making 6 in the market and interest rates are 8? You do not want a mortgage. You use your assets. So these are things that these are conversations that I have with clients all the time. First mortgage, second mortgage, there's recasts, but the pre-approval process uncovers all that data and all that information so that you can make an intelligent decision.
Let's not talk about a business owner. Let's talk about someone who's employed. Not saying a business owner isn't employed, but not self-employed. Let's talk about someone that's working for a company. If I wanted to bring someone to you today with everything going on, what would be an average time frame to get them to full approval?
If they supply to me, and I'm not going to go down the list with you, we'll leave that for maybe.
We don't have enough time in this podcast to do that.
Well, no, it's the income, assets, and obligations. If
I'm
they
just teasing because we all love the underwriting process. We wish we could go through it a lot more often, right?
Don't we all? Yeah.
You want what?
we need what if they can supply me the information that they need. We can get a conditional commitment in 3 days. Literally.
Now, conditional, that's a new word you just introduced. That's not full approval, right?
A conditional commitment means you've sent me your pay stubs, you sent me your W-2s. If we need tax returns, you sent me those. You sent me bank statements, but there's a large deposit maybe on the bank statement, but we have enough money to verify that you can close. The underwriter is going to issue me a conditional commitment, but they're going to want to know what's that large deposit that's on the bank statement. That means the loan's approved if the information you give me can prove that large deposit's not a loan. That's a conditional commitment.
Do I have your permission to put you on the spot?
100%.
Since I have the recording button on this, and I definitely can get away with this. So here's a test question, and this is not rehearsed. So I know the answer I'm looking for. So I take a client to you, and you've got full approval. And we're looking for homes, and let's say it's going to take us 6 weeks. What do we not want them to do during that 6 weeks?
God bless my processors. They have little at the bottom of their signature page. There's a list of things. Don't quit your job. Don't go buy a car. There are certain things you do. You just don't want to do anything to negatively affect. Let me back up. To affect what we validated.
Yeah.
Because you could have another job offer that's more money. And it might be a wonderful opportunity. And it might be okay to do, but what's the timing? If we're closing next week and your job starts the day that we close on the loan, we got a problem. So, and those are things we can discuss and work through. We just got to communicate.
So we get someone final approval and they're excited. We've got a house. We haven't closed yet. That's not the time to go out and take out a big loan to buy furniture and new appliances and all that kind of stuff.
And and Mike, I get that call all the time. Thanks for bringing that up. How many times does people say, well, I'm really not borrowing anything yet. It's 90 days, same as cash. Guess what? You did fill out a credit application to do that. They pulled your credit. And by the way, think about this, everybody. When you do anything with credit, when a mortgage company pulls a credit report, there's an alert that's basically tagged you. So if you have an inquiry, meaning you just go out and you're shopping for a new car, you're not going to buy anything, and you went to the credit manager and they went behind their magic curtain. And they pulled your credit report 15 times to get see what your credit scores are. But you didn't buy anything. Guess who's going to find out?
Yep.
And we're going to say, hey, there were some inquiries into your credit report. Did you take out a new loan? So again, you're back to your point. You do not want to do anything like that.
Yeah, you got the question right, and I knew you would. I wanted to make sure that point out there. Don and I have worked together. I'm going to do just a little bit of a commercial here. In the real estate world, in the mortgage world, I am allowed to ask Don to pay for up to 50% of my marketing costs, and that's legal. That's completely legal. There's a term for it. I don't know what it is because I don't believe in it. Don is here right up on day one. We came to an agreement that Don would be part of the extended team. We have lawyers, we have inspectors, we have Don, the mortgage guy, because he gets the job done. And so I get no kickback. I am, because of the success we've had in real estate, we can surround ourselves with the best, and because we deliver. So Don is here because he gets things done. I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. We had a couple not too long ago, and they were trying to buy a condo out on Longboat Key, and they were hooked into Chase, and Chase was really struggling to get that over the finish line. And I got Don involved, and this couple still had an allegiance with Chase and tried to get it done. But the bottom line, Chase couldn't get the loan done. And it's all because the condo wouldn't sign a document stating about the history of the condo. And Don was able to work through that legally and ethically. And he was able to bring a loan over the finish line that couple would not have gotten otherwise. Is that a correct statement, Don?
There's more than one way to skin the cat, as they say, right? So,
But
I
know how you did it.
There's bottom line, Mike, is, the experience that we've had that situation come up before, and you know how to solve it.
It was $1 million deal that this couple was really excited about. So,
and I think we had a very appreciative and happy clients too.
Yes.
So, and that's the bottom line, Mike. We want you to be happy and feel like that we really worked on your behalf to get you into that house. And this is not a cake of soap, a pair of socks. This is a place you're going to live. And we Mike and I do understand that and respect that. So, this is important to us.
But it's always going to be done legally and ethically. I've had cases where I represented the seller and there was some funny stuff on the buyer side, and I won't participate in that. My seller didn't want to participate in that. It's got to be above board. It's got to be legal. The steps that Don takes. I can't remember any time you've failed. You have brought it over the finish line. Anytime you got an approval up front, even a preliminary approval, you were able to deliver the product, even when some of the big chains couldn't get it done for us.
We don't do this for our practice. We don't do this. I don't need the practice, Mike. When we take an application, we're gonna get it to closing, or else we won't take it. Same as you. So if we jump in, we're confident it's going to close.
Don, I want to thank you again. Let's close. I want you to give your email address and your phone number so the folks that are listening to this, they've got that in front of them. Go ahead.
The 941-227-7618 is cell phone number. I carry that thing with me everywhere, as we all do. The email is Bart, B-A-R-T, and that's just A-N-D, team@gmail.com.
Perfect. Don, I want to thank you for this. We've got many more planned as we go forward. You bring a lot of value to this. We can ask the tough questions. You react really well here. You're experienced. You know what you're doing, and you've proven that time and time again. So I want to thank you for participating. Those that are listening or watching, we are working on Don's camera. We made some tweaks. We thought that would fix it from the first podcast. It didn't. So Don now has his marching orders. And you said you like to make your clients happy. So I'm looking for a new camera the next time we get together.
I got it written down. It's on my to-do list.
So we're all learning here. As you see in my background, we got different equipment. On this side, we're going to have more equipment. We're taking this seriously. We want to provide information that helps you. We want to provide information that cuts through the BS, that it's actionable. It's how business is done right. And there'll be a lot more coming at us this way. Don, I know we're going to talk beforehand, but just in case something falls through the crack, I want to wish you the best holidays ever. Let me give you a warning. I'm headed to your city. I'm coming up on Monday. I'm going to be there for 2 or 3 days, kind of just relaxing and heading out. Don is based out of Orlando, but he writes many, many mortgages here in Sarasota, Manatee County, and he's present for every single one of them. So even though you're based out of there, but I like to give Don a warning because I'm headed up to spend a few days with the mouse. And looking forward to getting up there. It's my runaway place from Sarasota is to go up there to Orlando. So headed your way.
The mayor of Orlando, the mouse.
Yes.
We steer clear of that place, just so you know.
So it's fun there. But Don, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be back together sometime next week, probably. And I look forward to more candid conversations.